Okay. Okay, I got the confirmation, I think, from the prosecution that they were here. Is the defense also here? Or whichever team I did not get that confirmation from, I guess, I mean, I don't know why I'm asking for confirmation if they're not here. Okay, the other team hasn't responded yet. It looks like we have some defense people in here and prosecution.
I believe we're still missing a few witnesses.
You're missing a few witnesses. That's no problem. I'm gonna bounce around, make sure that all the other rooms are good. Molly, can you text me whenever, just hop on here and tell the other judge when we're good? And then we can go ahead.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll be back. Okay, did everyone get here now? Or are we still waiting?
I didn't hear anything while you were gone.
Cool. We've got another judge that'll probably come in here and judge. Okay, wait, never mind. Chris has got her in here. So we'll have 3 and I'll just preside. That is fantastic. Okay, Samantha, did Chris send you your ballot?
He should be sending it. I just sent him my email.
Okay, that's no problem. Let me know if he doesn't, because I can also share it with you. I have access to it. I'm gonna bounce around. Teams still do the same thing. When your team member gets here, when we finish up getting everyone, please let us know. And Molly will let me know and I'll be right back. Other than that, just hang tight for a little bit.
Robert, he just sent it to me.
Okay, thank you. All right, what are we looking like for the attorneys? Is everyone back yet?
Everyone for the defense is here.
Prosecution? I think I got the confirmation from the prosecution earlier, I do believe, I believe you all are out of bio.
Yes, Your Honor. Prosecution's present.
Okay, do you all mind turning on your camera so we can do a little conflict check real fast? Judges, if you want to turn on your camera too, just in case you judged them last round, even though I know one of you could not have judged them last round and I couldn't have either. That would be great. Okay. I don't recognize anybody. Molly, if you do, no, we're all good. Okay. Y'all are good. We'll get to pre-trials here in a minute. We'll probably be the last round to start pre-trial just because I'm doing other conflict checks, but set tight for a little bit. We'll be back with you. Oh, does anybody want recording privileges while I'm here? I forgot to ask that the first time around. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
You want me to give them to you?
Yes, please.
No problem. I believe. Let me figure out how to do this again. It's been a little bit, but I got you. Do you see a record button at the bottom? Will you make sure it's not, yes, you can already do it. Chris may have gave out record, but recording privileges to everyone.
It's already recording, Robbie.
Okay, cool. I don't know who's recording it though. I just didn't want one team to have it if not. If whoever's recording it can also make sure we get it somewhere else too, that'd be great.
Yes, if the opposing team can put their email in the chat, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for working with them. Okay, with that, we've got the all clear. If both parties are ready to proceed and everyone's here still, we'll get going.
Your Honor, I wanted to bring up one thing. We had one of our teammates unexpectedly have to leave, so I will be filling in their role. I'll be playing Blake Hart and Hayden Russell.
That's no problem. Prosecution, just be aware of that fact. I know we'll just have to work with it with the technology and everything how it is. So at this time, the court will hear the case of the Commonwealth of Kentucky versus Blake Hart. Are both sides here and ready to proceed with pretrial matters? Yes, you may begin.
Alrighty. Good afternoon, Your Honor. We'd like to make introductions for the court. I'll go first. My name is Emma Burns, and I'll be conducting the direct of Officer Dakota Grant, and I'll also be conducting the cross of Blake Hart.
My name is Claire Martin, and I will be conducting the direct of Rory Butler, the cross of Sawyer Scott, and the closing argument.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Silas Kugel. I will be giving the opening in today's case. I will also be directing Kennedy Lyon and conducting the cross-examination of Hayden Russell.
Good afternoon to all of you. Before we proceed with our prosecution, do you have any more introductions? Are you?
Yes, Your Honor. The witnesses will introduce themselves.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Sarah James, and I'm portraying the role of Kennedy Lyon. Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Sydney Herringshaw, and I will be portraying the role of Rory Butler.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Karen Yang, and I'll be portraying the role of Dakota Grant.
Thank you all. Before we get moving on to your pretrial matters prosecution, I'd like to hear introductions from the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Lucy Tolliver, and I, along with my co-counsel Ryan Kidd
Good morning, Your Honor.
and Kylie Pirtle,
Good morning, Your Honor.
represent the defendant Blake Hart in today's case.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Defense, do you have any more introductions, or
Would you like our witnesses to make introductions too?
if they'd like to? It's not necessary. But if you actually go ahead and get them to, that way the scoring judges have their names and can see them.
So portraying Blake Hart and Hayden Russell.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Katie Tulliver, and I'll be playing Blake Hart and Hayden Russell.
And our final witness today, portraying Sawyer Scott.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon to all of you. We'll get back with the prosecution's pretrial matters at this time, if they have any.
Yes, Your Honor. We would just like to call the court's attention to relevant case law Mattingly versus the Commonwealth. Although there's no specific hearsay exception to investigate hearsay, police officers can testify to the testimony obtained through their investigations, as long as it furthers the course of the investigation. So we'll be referencing that during today's trial. And with that, the prosecution is ready to proceed.
Okay, defense counsel, let me ask you, is that your understanding of that case law?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, with that prosecution, does defense have any pretrial matters?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, since this is our first appearance in your court, we would like to ask for your preference on a couple of matters. First, for evidentiary matters, would you like us to ask permission before sharing our screens or just announce it for the record?
Just announce it for the record is all.
Second, after objections are sustained, would you like us to move to strike offending testimony, or should we assume it's been stricken?
You should move to strike any testimony that you feel is offended, your objection.
Yes, Your Honor. And finally, we would like to draw the court's attention to stipulation 1, which states that all exhibits are authentic and accurate in all respects in today's trial.
All right, that will be noted.
And with that, Your Honor, the defense is ready to proceed.
Okay, if both teams are ready to proceed, we'll proceed with prosecution's opening statement.
Desperate people do desperate things. In today's case, you will learn about somebody who was desperate. Desperate for a job. Desperate for money. Desperate for drugs. It is out of desperation that Blake Hart, the defendant in today's case, decided the best way to get out of the situation that she was in was to rob somebody at gunpoint. This was the desperate act of a desperate individual. LaRue Park is an older park in Scarborough. What was once a thriving playground has now become more of an abandoned junkyard. In fact, you're more likely to see somebody selling drugs there than you are to see somebody jogging. In respect to the day of March 14th, 2021, it was just a normal day for LaRue Park. Kennedy Lyon was admittedly at LaRue Park on this day to sell drugs. Kennedy will tell you about her system of code names. She agreed to sell 1 ounce of marijuana to an individual code-named Badger. As you will later learn in today's case, Badger is none other than the defendant in today's case, Blake Hart. Kennedy was at the restrooms at LaRue Park at around noon that day when she was approached by a figure in a bulky black coat and a cream-colored hoodie. This figure had the hoodie tightly pulled around their face. It was clear that they did not want to be seen by prying eyes. This person did respond when they were addressed as Badger. Kennedy was just standing there. She will tell you how she was preparing to get out her bag of marijuana, 1 ounce of marijuana, wrapped in a clear plastic baggie, when this individual pulled a gun on her and asked her to hand over all the money and drugs that she had. Terrified, Kennedy Lyon gave $500 wrapped in a rubber band and the ounce of marijuana in a clear plastic baggie to Blake Hart. This was a desperate act by a desperate individual. Rory Butler works at LaRue Park. Rory will tell you how she saw this individual respond to the name Badger, and Rory will also be able to provide important details as to what the robber was wearing. Rory will testify that the robber was wearing a bulky black coat and a cream-colored hoodie with a hole in the abdomen. These details will later support the evidence that shows that Blake Hart was the robber in today's case. After witnessing the robbery, Rory Butler called 911, and Officer Dakota Grant responded to this call. When Officer Grant arrived on the scene, she took the statement of Rory Butler and then found Kennedy Lyon, who was still in the restroom. She was in shock over what had just occurred. Kennedy told Officer Grant about the robbery, and although Officer Grant was a little skeptical at first, the more research she did and the more investigation, the more evidence she found to uphold the claims of robbery by Kennedy Lyon. I want you to pay close attention in today's case to the pieces of evidence that Officer Dakota Grant found. In Blake Hart's house, Officer Grant found a bulky black coat, a cream-colored hoodie with a hole in the abdomen, $500 wrapped in a rubber band, and an ounce of marijuana in a plastic baggie. Hart was desperate for money and drugs. It is our job today as the prosecution to prove our charges to you beyond a reasonable doubt. Today, we must prove that Blake Hart committed robbery by taking the property of Kennedy Lyon. We must prove that Blake Hart threatened the use of physical force against Kennedy Lyon while in the possession of a handgun, and that the handgun is a deadly weapon. We will prove these charges to you today because that is what the evidence will support. Desperate people do desperate things. On the day of March 14th, 2021, Blake Hart was desperate. Desperate for a job. Desperate for money to pay rent. Desperate for marijuana. It is out of desperation that Blake Hart decided to rob Kennedy Lyon at gunpoint. Blake Hart thought that nobody would be watching and nobody would care if a drug dealer was robbed. But he was wrong. The law is the law. Nobody deserves to be held at gunpoint and asked to hand over everything they have. At the end of this trial, my co-counsel will come before you and ask you to find Blake Hart guilty of robbery in the first degree. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Is the defense ready for their opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. An accusation without a proper investigation. Now, the prosecution's job in today's case didn't start when they woke up this morning. It didn't start when they logged onto this Zoom call, and it certainly didn't start when they came up to speak to you just a minute ago. No. Today's trial is just one step in a long process of seeking justice. In fact, the state's job started back on March 14th when they claimed that Miss Kennedy Lyon, a drug dealer, was robbed. Now, from that day forward, it was their job to collect evidence, to interview witnesses, to leave no stone unturned. But as you will learn today, they simply failed to meet that obligation. Instead, the prosecution made an accusation without a proper investigation. But members of the jury, the prosecution can't just make an accusation. They have to prove it. Now, they brought a charge of armed robbery against Ms. Hart, and they will have to prove to you that beyond a reasonable doubt, the highest burden in our legal system. Now, as the defense, we hold no burden. The burden in today's case lies squarely on the prosecution. And members of the jury, we are confident that they'll fail to meet this burden today because they made an accusation without a proper investigation. Now, to make it clear what the prosecution failed to investigate, I'd like for you to keep 2 questions in mind today throughout today's trial. Number 1, could anyone other than Blake Hart have committed this robbery? And number 2, is it possible that a robbery may not have even occurred? Today, we're going to recall 3 witnesses to answer these questions. Now, today, you're going to hear the name Badger come up quite a bit. And the prosecution is going to try and tell you that the Badger name solely applied to Ms. Hart. But as it will become clear, that simply is not the case. Now, we're going to call Ms. Hart to the stand today, and she will tell you that the Badger code name had been given out to many people before she even got it. Then, after choosing to stop smoking marijuana, she gave out the name to even more people. Now, members of the jury, numerous people had the Badger name and the ability to contact Ms. Leone. And those people weren't Blake Hart. But the state didn't even bother to investigate who those people could have been. You'll even learn that Ms. Hart was nowhere near LaRue Park that day. Now, we expect the prosecution to claim that Ms. Hart stole an ounce of marijuana from Kennedy Lyon. But as you'll learn from Ms. Hart's roommate, Hayden Russell, that simply is not the case. Ms. Russell will tell you that the marijuana found in the apartment wasn't Ms. Hart's, it was hers. You'll learn that she told that to the police, but they just didn't listen. Ms. Russell will also tell you that Ms. Hart wouldn't have been able to access a gun that day. Now, members of the jury, Blake Hart could simply not have committed this crime. This brings us to our second question. Did a robbery even happen that day? We will call Ms. Sawyer Scott to the stand, and she will tell you exactly what she saw. She'll explain that she saw Ms. Lyon meet up with someone in LaRue Park that day, but that she did not see a robbery. Members of the jury, we are confident that no eyewitnesses in today's trial other than Ms. Lyon will claim that they even saw a gun that day. Why? Because there simply wasn't one. You'll also learn that she tried to contact the police with this information, but they refused to listen. Now, the police had the duty to do their job. They had the duty to collect all of the evidence. They had the duty to leave no doubt. But members of the jury, we are confident you will be left with nothing but doubt, because the state made an accusation without a proper investigation. That is why at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Lucy Tolliver, will come before you and ask that you find Blake Hart not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Is the prosecution ready to proceed with its case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the prosecution calls Ms. Kennedy Lyon to the witness stand.
Ms. Lyon, I just want to remind you that you've been sworn in previously to state the truth and nothing but the truth, and you may proceed whenever you're ready.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
My name is Kennedy Lyon, and I was born and raised right here in Scarborough.
Ms. Lyon, what do you do for a living?
I currently do not work. I just moved back in with my parents, and I'm hoping to get my GED soon and start taking classes at the local community college next year.
If you're working on your GED, does that mean you did not finish high school?
That's right. I was an average student, but I never really liked or even cared about school. I ended up dropping out of Castleton County High School my senior year when I turned 18.
After you dropped out, did you work anywhere?
I started working kitchen and restaurant jobs so I could make a little money to pay my parents' rent. I also got involved in selling marijuana. I started out just using it occasionally, but I ended up having to start selling to support my habit.
Where did most of your marijuana sales take place?
I would do a lot of sales at parties and other social events, but the more I sold, the more regulars I would have.
And what do you mean by regulars?
This was just someone who would buy from me repetitively. They would text me on disposable phones or block numbers so that we could meet up for the sale.
How did you know which regular was contacting you if their numbers were different or blocked?
I had a system. I would give my customers animal code names like elk or iguana or even termite, and they would text me and let me know who they were by tagging it with their code name.
Ms. Lyon, I'd now like to talk about the date of March 14th, 2021. Do you recall that day?
Yes, that was the worst day of my life. that was the day that I was robbed.
Where did this robbery take place?
LaRue Park. Not many people are ever really there. It's pretty rundown.
Miss Lyon, who were you selling marijuana to on this day?
Badger.
Had you ever sold marijuana to Badger before?
Yes, I had.
And when you had sold marijuana to Badger, who did you meet in person?
Blake Hart.
Is Blake Hart the defendant in today's trial?
Yes.
Miss Lyon, how much marijuana did Blake Hart request?
He requested an ounce of marijuana.
Was an ounce a normal request for Blake Hart?
No, I was surprised that Blake wanted so much. And Blake had told me that they were up for hard for money multiple times. They were always complaining about my prices. And honestly, I was just surprised to hear from Blake at all.
Why were you surprised to hear from Blake?
Well, I thought that Blake was mad at me for an incident that we had a month before. Blake accused me of ripping him off on a deal, but I'm a great businesswoman and I would never do that. We kind of got in a yelling match and screamed at each other at the party we were at.
What were you screaming about?
It was all about trust. We both said that we couldn't trust each other, and then as they were leaving the party, Blake coldly looked at me and said, "Bad things happen to shady dealers."
If you and Blake had had an altercation the month before, why did you agree to sell to him again?
Well, I went against my better judgment, but $500 is $500.
Your Honor, at this time I will be referring to what has been previously marked as Exhibit 3. I will now be screen sharing this document. I believe there's a technical error on my end. It will not let me screen share the document and have my microphone unmuted at the same time. So I will just proceed with my questions. Ms.
Also,
Lyon, did you have a tech?
If you'd like, I can screen share the document. I've already pulled it up, if that would help you out.
That would be perfect. Thank you, Your Honor.
No problem. Give me one moment.
Ms. Lyon, do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
Does it appear to be a fair and accurate copy?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, at this time, the prosecution moves this document into evidence as Commonwealth Exhibit 3.
Any objections from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Objection to hearsay.
Or counsel, are we talking about hearsay to the whole document, parts, or?
They're just all the text messages, Your Honor.
All the text messages? No problem. Prosecution, do you have any response to that?
Yes, Your Honor. This document is an exception to the hearsay rule under Rule 801, Section D, Part 2, Party Opponent. This document has statements that were made by our party opponent, Blake Hart.
So, counsel, can you identify which text messages those are?
Yes, those text messages would be the first message, the third message, and the fifth message. So all the messages that have private on the from column.
Okay, counsel, how do you respond to that?
These messages are from a private number, and there's no way to connect them to Mr. Hart.
Prosecution, may I ask you, is it stated somewhere in the case that it is, or is it just from the testimony of this witness that we know is from Blake Hart?
It is our contention in the case, and it is from this witness. But this document would also be an exception to the hearsay rule under Rule 803, then existing state of mind. This would show the intent of the people who have sent the text messages and would show what their further courses of actions would be.
Yeah, I do believe this is a plan as well. Preponderance of the evidence is all the barrier prosecution needs to meet to prove it's the party opponent. Defense counsel, I'd ask you if you'd like to question who sent these messages, please take that up on cross, but for now I'm gonna let the document in.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Lyon, what was decided from these text messages with Badger?
It was decided that Blake was going to buy an ounce of weed for $500 and that we were going to meet at the restrooms at LaRue Park, which was good because Blake said that they lived close to there.
What happened once you arrived at the restrooms at LaRue Park?
I got to the restrooms at like 11:55. I'm never late for a deal. A few minutes later, I saw someone walking in my general direction. The person was wearing a bulky black coat and a dark gray hoodie.
Was this person Blake Hart?
I cannot tell from just looking at them. They had the hoodie tightened around their face, and between the bulky coat and the face covering, I couldn't tell exactly who it was. So I asked, Blake?
How did this person respond?
The person nodded.
And what happened next?
As Blake approached, I pulled out the bag of marijuana and said, Blake, I hope you have the money. I saw Blake's hand move, but instead of pulling out the money, Blake pulled out a gun out of their pocket.
And what happened once the gun was pulled on you?
The person hissed at me to hand over the drugs and the money. I gave them the ounce of marijuana in a clear plastic bag and all the money in my pocket. Then the person said to turn around and count to 100. I think that the voice sounded a lot like Blake's at that point.
And what happened next?
I counted to 100 and then I just stood there in shock. I didn't know what to do and I couldn't stop shaking. I don't even know how long I stood there. I was still shaken up from the robbery when Officer Grant showed up.
And what happened once the officer arrived?
They asked me if everything was all right and then ran my license. Turns out I had an outstanding warrant that I didn't even know about, and I was arrested. It was at this point I began telling Officer Grant about the robbery that had just occurred.
Do you know if Officer Grant ever investigated your claim of robbery?
Yes, Officer Grant got a search warrant for my phone and saw the text between me and Blake. Officer Grant re-asked me about the events and about everything that was stolen from me. Blake was eventually arrested for the robbery.
Miss Lyon, what exactly was the robber wearing?
A black S-Smart coat with a dark gray hoodie underneath it.
And what exactly did the robber steal from you?
An ounce of marijuana in a clear plastic baggie and $500 wrapped in a rubber band.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
Defense counsel, are you ready to proceed with your cross-examination of the witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may go whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Ms. Leon. First, I'd like to talk to you about what you do for a living.
Well, currently I'm not employed, but I'm living with my parents and I'm hoping to start taking college classes at the local community college next year.
You used to deal drugs, correct?
I did. I'm not very proud of it.
And you've dealt that to a lot of people, haven't you?
I have. I had a lot of regulars when I used to sell.
And you would agree with me that selling drugs is a dangerous business.
Yes, it has a lot of things that can happen to you. You can get arrested, you can get robbed, you can get threatened, or even killed.
That's right. You can get threatened. And isn't it true that other dealers have threatened you in the past?
Yes, about a week before my robbery, a person pulled a knife out on me, but it was okay because they didn't end up doing anything.
And isn't it also true that your buyers have threatened you in the past?
Yes, just like
Objection, Your Honor. This is irrelevant testimony. I fail to see how threats that have been made against Ms. Kennedy Lyon in the past have anything to do with the robbery that we are talking about in the case today.
Vince.
Your Honor, this is Your Honor, this is relevant as it shows that other people have threatened Ms. Leon in the past, not just Blake Hart or anyone else. Sorry.
Let me ask you, I get that point, but what are you building to with this point? Just other people have threatened her? Because I don't see how that's directly relevant to today's case unless it's an overarching point.
Your Honor, I'm just trying to explain that this is not the first time that Ms. Lyon has been threatened with a knife or a gun or anything, and this has happened in the past multiple times.
Okay, prosecution counsel, I'm going to overrule your objection for now. I don't think defense counsel has gotten too far into the weeds out of it. I think this is still at least tangentially relevant. But if they do go too far into this and they're stop asking about stuff that really matters to today's case, please feel free to re-raise your objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, Miss Leon, I'd like to talk to you about Blake Hart. While Miss Hart has dealt drugs for you in the past, you two did have a falling out near the February, didn't you?
Yes, Blake was telling me that she couldn't trust me at a party, and then we ended up yelling at each other.
And Miss Hart did claim that you were shortening her on the amount of marijuana sold to her, correct?
Yes, she also at that party said shady things happen to shady dealers.
And you would agree with me that bad things did happen to you, correct?
Yes, I was robbed.
And specifically, a week before March 14th, someone did threaten to kill you, didn't they?
Objection, Your Honor. This has already been covered in testimony, so it would be asked and answered.
Your Honor, I'm just trying to confirm this is what she has said.
Defense counsel, have you asked this question already?
I have not asked this question, no.
Yeah, with that, I'm going to overrule the objection. Defense counsel has free range to ask about anything that you've also asked about. And if he does it twice on his cross, then we'll address it then. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Lyon, I just want to be specific. That person was not Blake Hart that tried to rob you a week before.
No, it was one of my other customers.
Now, I'd like to talk to you about what you think your interaction with Blake Hart on March 14th. On March 14th, you got a text from an unknown number, correct?
Yes, Badger.
And that unknown number identified himself as Badger, just to be clear.
Yes, as I just said.
Now, Badger was one of the code names given to your customers to identify themselves, isn't it?
Yes. Blake Hart had been passed down the name Badger.
But Miss Leon, that text just didn't surprise you at all, did it?
I was surprised to hear from Blake.
And after your argument in February, you didn't think you'd be hearing from Blake again.
I didn't. We had gotten in an argument, and I usually don't talk to people after I'm mad at them, so I wasn't really expecting to hear.
And isn't an ounce of marijuana a little much for Blake?
Yes, Blake has always told me that they were hard up for money, and they told me my prices were too high. And so when they wanted an ounce of marijuana, which is $500, I was shocked.
Well, let's talk about why it might not have been Blake Hart. Miss Lyon, Blake Hart was not the only person to identify themselves as Badger, correct?
They were not, but that was usually who texted me.
That's right. Numerous people have tried to contact you using the name Badger in the past.
Yes, but I never sold to them. Once I found out that Blake was the Badger, I would tell the other people that came to me as Badger that I wasn't selling to them.
But Miss Leon, the first Badger you dealt drugs to was named Ronnie, correct?
Yes, Ronnie Jefferson.
And while you told Ronnie not to give the code name to anyone, he did just that, correct?
He did. He passed it down to Blake once he decided that he didn't want to do drugs anymore, and he went to rehab.
And just to be clear, you do not know how many people Ronnie gave that name to, do you?
I do not, but I know that he did pass it down to Blake.
And you also believe that Blake Hart gave out this code name to many other people, correct?
Yes, even after I told them not to.
And numerous people in the past have tried to contact you using the name Badger. Isn't that right?
And when I realized that they weren't Blake, I told them that I wasn't selling to them.
Now, I'd like to talk to you about the person that claimed to rob you on March 14th. That person was wearing a hoodie, correct?
Yes, a dark gray one.
And that hoodie was covering their face.
It was cold out that day, so it was understandable.
So you can't tell me what they looked like.
No, I couldn't, but I can tell you that they were around Blake's height.
Can you tell me their build?
I cannot.
Can you even tell me their hair color?
I cannot. It was covered by the hoodie, just like you said.
And finally, you couldn't even see their gender.
I couldn't.
Now, Miss Leon, just to be clear, you cannot tell me a single defining feature about what they looked like.
I can tell you about their height.
You can estimate about their height, correct?
Yes, it was around Blake Hart's height.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Prosecution, do you have any redirect for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
All right, with that, Ms. Lyon, you're free to step down. Does the prosecution have any more witnesses to call?
The prosecution calls Rory Butler.
Before we begin, let me make sure my scoring judges are good. Are you all good, or do you need some time to score in between?
If I could have maybe just like 10 more seconds and then
You're
I
good. Take your
will
time.
writing some comments down and then we can move on and then y'all can get a little breather too.
No problem. Just let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I'm good.
Prosecution may proceed. Ms. Butler, I'd like to remind you that you've been previously sworn in.
Yes, Your Honor.
Please introduce yourself for the members of the jury.
My name is Rory Butler.
Mrs. Butler, what do you do for a living?
I am currently employed by the City of Scarborough in the Parks Department as a park maintenance employee. I've been with them ever since I graduated back in '97.
Do you work in any single park, or are you spread out through the whole city?
Oh, I've been assigned all over, but for the past 10 years, I've been working at LaRue Park.
And do you enjoy working in LaRue Park?
Yes, ma'am, I do. It's not in the best part of town, and it was almost shut down in 2014. But we got a new parks director from Pawnee, Indiana, and she saved the park. God bless her. Also, because of the work, it's been in a steady decline for years.
When you say the park has been on a steady decline for years, what do you mean by that?
Well, a couple years ago, you would hear kids laughing and playing. I mean, music to my ears. But now the equipment isn't the best anymore. Swings are missing, slides are rusting, and we don't get near as much traffic at some of the nicer parks downtown. Also, because of the location, we have people using and dealing drugs here more than I ever would like.
Do you ever witness any of these drug deals occurring?
Yes, ma'am. I would always be on the lookout for deals and call them into the police. Usually by the time the police arrived, everyone's gone. They take my information and thank me for my time, but rarely are there any arrests.
I would like to call your attention to March 14th, 2021. Do you remember that date?
Yes, ma'am. That was one of those rare occasions where there actually was an arrest for something that happened at the park. I believed I witnessed a drug deal and the police had come in time to arrest the dealer.
Let's go back a little. What were you doing when you witnessed this drug deal?
I was making my rounds on the south side of the park. When it was about noon, I decided that I had earned myself a cup of coffee, so I headed over to the machines. Not the best coffee, but I got a key, so I get it for free. While I was pouring, I noticed someone looking real sketchy by the restrooms. I thought a crime was about to happen.
And what made you think a crime was about to happen?
Well, I thought that individual was someone that I had seen selling marijuana in the park. I didn't know at the time, but I later found this out to be Kennedy Lyon.
And what did you do after suspecting a crime was about to occur?
I hid behind the vending machines and I waited to see if anything else was going to happen. Sure enough, someone approached Lyon.
Do you know about how far away you were from the two individuals?
Yes, ma'am. About 30 feet.
And what happened when the individual approached Lyon?
Lyon called out to the person, and it sounded like they had asked him a one-worded question, almost as to make sure that this individual was the buyer.
And what did Lyon say?
Well, the individual nodded in response and moved closer to Lyon.
And how did they respond to what Lyon said?
Well, they nodded in response, and Lyon called out to them, and I think they said badger? I can't be sure. All I know is that they nodded to a weird word that started with the letter B.
And what happened once Badger moved closer to Lyon?
Lyon pulled out a clear plastic baggie with something green inside of it. I was right. I had stumbled across on the drug deal. I whipped out my phone and looked as closely as I could to make sure I could relate every bit of information to the police.
Could you tell any distinguishing features about the buyer Badger at this point?
No, ma'am, not at this point. All I could tell was that the buyer had on a black bulky coat and they had a hoodie on underneath.
Could you hear what was being said?
Unfortunately, about this time, the wind whooshed into the vending machines and made it impossible to hear.
Could you see what Badger was doing at this point?
No, not at this point. When they were facing line, they had their back towards me. I couldn't even see their hands.
Were you able to see Badger at any point?
Yes, ma'am. When they left, they walked towards me. I could see their front side at the time.
Was there anything distinguishable about the buyer now that you saw them from the front?
Yes, ma'am. Their hoodie was a zip-up style hoodie, and it had a noticeable hole in the abdomen area. Their hood was also pulled up so tight, like this, I couldn't tell any facial features.
And what was Kennedy Lyon doing as the person was walking away?
Acting kind of strange, actually. She just turned around and faced the wall. I had no idea what was going on.
And what happened once Badger left?
I called the police to report what I saw. I found out that there was an officer nearby, and I ended up meeting with Officer Grant. I knew Grant from previous times when I had called in crimes in the past.
What did you do once Officer Grant arrived?
I described what happened to her, and we walked back to the restroom area. When we got there, Kennedy was still there. I informed Grant that this was the individual that I had seen earlier.
And what happened next?
Grant went up to Lyon and took what I think was her driver's license. It was at this point Lyon was placed in handcuffs.
And what did Kennedy Lyon do once she was arrested?
Well, she got to get visibly emotional. But I couldn't hear what she was telling Officer Grant at the time.
Did anyone else ever talk to you about this incident?
Yes, ma'am. I didn't hear about it for a couple months, but then I got a call from a public defender's office asking me questions about the robbery that I had seen on March 14th. I was confused by this.
And why did this confuse you?
I didn't even know I witnessed a robbery. I guess when Badger had their back turned to me, a robbery occurred. I'm just glad they didn't see me. I mean, who knows what would have happened?
And what did you tell the public defender?
Everything I saw and heard. I told them every little bit of information I could. Dangerous individuals like that do not belong in my park. I'm just glad I can make it safer.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
Defense, do you have a cross-examination of this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? Thank you.
You may.
Now, good afternoon, Ms. Butler. I'd first like to talk to you about what exactly you saw on March 14th. Now, that day, you were working your shift at LaRue Park, correct?
Yes, I was working the south side all morning, and I ended up wandering over to the vending machines about noon.
Yes, and around noon, you did walk over to the park vending machines. And when you got there, you saw a person standing in front of the park restrooms. Is this correct?
Yes, while I was pouring my coffee, I saw someone looking all sketchy near the restrooms.
Now, that person was about 30 feet away from you, correct, Ms. Butler?
Yes, I'd say it'd be about 30 feet.
And you know that that person was Kennedy Lyon.
Well, I didn't know at the time, but I later found it out to be Kennedy Lyon. I just knew that it was an individual that I had seen earlier selling marijuana.
Now, a few minutes later, you saw a person approach Miss Kennedy Lyon, correct?
Yes, that's correct. It was after I hid behind the vending machines, and I was waiting for something sketchy about to happen.
Now, Kennedy Lyon asked Badger to that person as if they were confirming a name, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And after she asked that, the person nodded and moved forward to her.
Yes, now I'd like to talk to you about this Badger person.
Of
Now,
course.
Thank you. However, you weren't able to get a good look at this person, were you?
Well, at the time, no, because they had their back towards me when they face line. But when they left, I got a clearer view of their front side.
And they were wearing a hoodie that covered their head.
Yes, it was pulled up super tight, but I was more concerned about the hole in the abdomen, and they also had a bulky black coat. That's all I saw.
And you believe that the hoodie the person was wearing was relatively cream colored, correct?
Well, I think it was cream colored. I can't be for sure, but I wasn't really paying attention to the color. I was more paying attention to that hole.
Now, this hoodie made it quite difficult for you to distinguish any of the individual's features, didn't it?
Their facial features, yes. I mean, who puts their hood up like that?
So you can't tell us their build.
Well, no. I was more focused on the hole, not their build.
You can't tell us their skin tone.
I can't. I mean, they had all long sleeves on.
You can't even tell us their hair color, can you?
Well, no, because the hood was pulled up all the way.
Now, Miss Butler, you can't even tell us what gender the hooded individual was, can you?
No, I couldn't.
Even today, you have absolutely no idea what the hooded individual looked like at all, can you?
Well, I can tell you what they were wearing, and I can tell you what time they were at the park, but if you're going to ask me what their eye color is, I couldn't tell you. I'm sorry.
Now, finally, Miss Butler, this is quite important. When you saw the hooded individual, they did not have a gun, did they?
I didn't see a gun. I wasn't really concerned, or I wasn't even looking at their hands. Like I said, I was more concerned about that hole.
Yes, and when you saw the hooded individual, they didn't have a knife, did they?
Well, I couldn't see one if they did.
Now, Miss Butler, when you saw that individual, you didn't even see them threaten Kennedy Lyon in any way, did you?
Well, I couldn't hear because of the vending machines and the wind. So if they said it verbally, I couldn't hear them. And their back was faced towards me, so I couldn't make out any yelling or anything, just their back at the time.
All right, so that's a no. And after March 14th, the police didn't even bother to ask you if you saw a gun, did they?
Well, no, not exactly, but I told them all the information I could, and I tried my best to help the police make an arrest.
And however, they didn't even ask you if you had seen a robbery, did they?
They asked me what I had seen, and at the time I thought I had stumbled across a drug deal.
So based on what you saw, Miss Butler, you did not see a robbery, correct?
At the time, I didn't think I saw a robbery, but I guess I did.
However, in fact, after March 14th, the police did not contact you at all, did they?
No, ma'am. I gave my statement, and then a public defender actually called me and asked about the robbery that I had seen.
Now, Miss Butler, let's just set the record straight now. On March 14th, you did not witness a robbery.
Well, on March 14th, I didn't think I witnessed a robbery, but turns out I was wrong. It was a robbery.
So you can only base this based off what you were hearing after the incident, that there somehow was a robbery in LaRue Park, correct?
I was told I saw a robbery, and I guess I did. I can't tell you the verdict of this.
So just to clear things up for the jury, you were told that a robbery occurred, yet you never witnessed one. Is this correct?
Well,
Your
yes.
Honor, this question has been asked and answered.
Closing counsel.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Your Honor, I'm simply trying to clarify the fact with a yes or no statement based on the fact that Ms. Butler did or did not see a robbery. She is claiming that she was told that a robbery occurred, yet she cannot tell me whether or not she actually witnessed it on March 14th.
I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection. I believe the attorney here is asking a different question. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. However, I have no further questions at this time.
Prosecution, do you have any further questions for the witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You can proceed whenever you're ready.
Ms. Butler, what time did this incident occur?
It was about noon.
And Could you describe the hoodie in detail for me?
Yes, the hoodie was pulled up very tight. I think it was cream colored, but I can't be sure. But the most noticeable thing about it was the hole in the abdomen area. It was also a zip up style hoodie.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
Defense, any recross?
No, Your Honor.
All right, with that, Ms. Butler, you may step down. We'll give it a 10, 20 seconds, and then we'll let the prosecution call their next witness.
I'm ready when you all are.
All right, does the prosecution have another witness to call?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the prosecution calls Officer Dakota Grant to the stand.
All right, Ms. Grant, I just want to remind you that you've previously been sworn in, and with that, you may proceed.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
My name is Dakota Grant. I'm an officer with the Scarborough Police Department.
And how long have you held this position?
I've been with Scarborough PD since 2016. Before that, I worked as a forensic science technician.
And do you have a background in forensics?
Yes, I graduated EKU in 2009 with a bachelor's of science in forensic science. After that, I started working as a forensic technician at the KSB Central Laboratory.
Why did you decide to switch to police work?
Well, I wanted a more direct role in catching criminals. I applied with Scarborough PD, and once I was accepted, I was sent to the police academy where I graduated top of my class. I'm planning on taking an exam to become a detective in the near future.
Were you working patrol on March 14th, 2021?
Yes, I was. My shift was from 0800 to 1600, or 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
And did you respond to any calls at LaRue Park?
Yes, I was actually at the park eating lunch when dispatch sent out a call requesting an officer at LaRue Park for a possible drug transaction. I answered the call and met with park employee Roy Butler at the scene.
And what happened once you met with Roy Butler?
Well, Roy informed me about a drug transaction that had transpired in the park shortly before I had arrived. This involved two individuals. When Roy was showing me the location where it had happened, one of the individuals was still there.
And did you know who this individual was?
I didn't. I walked over toward them, and when I made eye contact, they began getting nervous, which a lot of people do around cops. I mean, people get nervous around me, and I'm only 5'4". It just comes with the job, I guess. I asked for some ID, and that's when I found out the person is Kennedy Lyon. I sent her information back to dispatch.
And what was dispatch able to inform you about Kennedy Lyon?
They told me that Lyon had an indictment warrant out for her arrest. So I placed her under arrest at that point and seized her phone.
What was Kennedy Lyon doing as you arrested them?
Well, Lyon began becoming very upset, claiming to have been robbed by a person named Blake Hart a few minutes ago.
And do you know Blake Hart?
Yes, I do. I've arrested Hart a few times, mainly for petty crimes.
Did you believe Kennedy Lyon at this point?
I mean, at that point, I didn't really, but I let her talk about the robbery all the way back to the jail. I always find it interesting when the people I arrest talk. Never know what they might say.
And what happened when you brought Miss Lyon to jail?
Well, I was given permission to act as a detective and investigate this case as a drug trafficking case. PDs do this sometimes to let officers train and be supervised by detectives in real life situations.
Once you were given permission to act as detective, what were your first steps?
So I obtained a search warrant for Lyon's phone, which revealed she had received texts from a blocked number from someone named Badger, setting up a meeting at the park with Lyon at noon, which matched a story Lyon had told me after her arrest.
Your Honor, at this time, I will be referring to what has previously been entered into evidence as prosecution exhibit 3. Let's see. Well. Your Honor, is there any way that you can screen share the document?
Yeah, that's no problem. Just let me know when you want it down.
Exhibit 3, we'll use that right now. Thank you so much. Officer Grant, do you recognize this document?
Yes, this is the text conversation recovered from Kennedy Lyon's phone.
And with this information revealed in the text, what did you do?
Well, I was given permission to change my investigation from drug trafficking to robbery. I was beginning to believe Lyon's story, so I went back to interview her again.
We're through with the document, Your Honor. Thank you. What did this interview reveal to you?
So I learned that the Badger codename was given to Blake Hart, and her story was consistent with what they had previously said. Lyon informed me she was robbed at gunpoint and that an ounce of marijuana and $500 in various bills wrapped around a rubber band was stolen.
Now that you were investigating a robbery, what did you do next?
I obtained a search warrant for the home of Blake Hart.
And how close was Blake Hart's home to LaRue Park?
Close enough for it to be significant in my investigation.
How so?
Well, first, I made the walk from Blake's home to LaRue Park in 30 minutes, which fits the time frame of the text messages. Second, Badger had indicated they live in the area. Third, Roy Butler witnesses the robber walking in the direction of Blake Hart's home.
When you executed the search warrant, did you find anything significant to the case?
Yes, I did. I found a number of significant items. I photographed some of the more important ones.
Your Honor, at this time, I'll be referring to what has previously been marked as Exhibit 6. Do you mind screen sharing that one again? Awesome. Let's see. Officer Grant, which exhibit did I just share with you?
Exhibit 6. It's a photograph of the money recovered at the scene.
And does this appear to be a fair and accurate copy?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, at this time, we move the introduction of this document into evidence as the Commonwealth Exhibit 6.
Any objections from the defense counsel?
No, Your Honor.
You say no.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, defense. You may proceed, prosecution.
What was the significance of this document?
So this was found in Blake Hart's bedroom nightstand. It's $500 in various denominations wrapped in a rubber band, just like Kennedy Lyon had described.
And at this time, Your Honor, I'll be referring to what has previously been marked as Exhibit 7. Thank you. Officer Grant, what have I just shared with the court?
You shared Exhibit 7, which is a picture of a hoodie found in the hamper of Hart's bedroom.
And does this appear to be a fair and accurate copy?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, we moved this document into evidence as Commonwealth Exhibit 7.
Any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed. It is entered.
And Officer Grant, what was the significance of this item?
This hoodie had a noticeable hole located in the abdomen area, matching the description from Roy Butler.
And lastly, Your Honor, at this time, I'll be referring to what is previously marked as Exhibit 8. And Officer Grant, what is this an image of?
This is the photograph of the gun and marijuana found in Hart's home.
And does this appear to be a fair and accurate copy?
Yes, it does.
Right, Your Honor, at this time, we move this document to be admitted into evidence as Commonwealth Exhibit 8.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
All right, with that, you may proceed. It is so entered.
And Officer Grant, what is the significance of these items?
This is a Glock 19 handgun with a full magazine and a clear plastic bag with a green leafy substance that presented as marijuana. These items were found in the kitchen drawer. The gun and quantity of marijuana found matched the descriptions given by Kennedy Lyon.
Thank you, Your Honor. You can stop screen sharing now. Did you find any other pieces of evidence?
Yes, I did. So I found a bulky black winter coat matching the description of both Lyon and Butler. I didn't photograph this item as it's just a common coat and had no distinguishing features. I also seized 2 disposable cell phones from Hart and Russell.
And did these yield anything?
No, Russell's phone had no usable information. Hart's phone had recently gone through a factory reset, which deletes all messages and data history. I found this suspicious.
Were you able to speak with Hart?
Hart executes their right to remain silent.
What about Russell?
They agreed to talk with me, and I was informed that around the time of the robbery, Hart went for a walk, but was not forthcoming with the exact time and length of the time Hart was gone.
And what did you do at this point?
Blake Hart was placed under arrest for the robbery of Kennedy Lyon.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Defense, do you have a cross-examination of this witness?
Yes, Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Good afternoon, Officer Grant. I'd like to begin by talking about your credentials. You were acting as a detective in today's investigation, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
But Officer Grant, you aren't actually a detective, are you?
I'm not, but I've had years of experience with the police force, and I've been on some cases with detectives.
But you've not taken the necessary exams to become a detective, correct?
Yes, that's true, as I'd stated previous, but I have a lot of experience.
Now, when you typically serve as a detective, you normally have a supervisor, correct?
Yes, that is true, but this time the police force trusted me to act alone.
Yes, but in your first violent felony case, you did not have a supervisor, correct?
Yes, that is true, but the police force did in fact trust me with this case.
Now, let's go through what you did as a detective. Now, you would agree with me that as a detective, it's important to collect all available evidence, correct?
Yes, that is correct. It's very important.
And it's especially important to listen to all potential eyewitnesses of a crime, correct?
Yes, it is correct.
Now, you're aware that you received a phone call from Sawyer Scott concerning today's case, correct?
Yes, I did receive a phone call from Sawyer.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I'm screen sharing what has previously been marked as Exhibit 10. Co-counsel.
If you need me to share it, I've got it up as well. Oh, there it goes. No problem.
Now, this is a transcript of the voice message left to you by Sawyer Scott, correct?
Yes, it is.
The defense moves to enter Exhibit 10 into evidence pursuant to Stipulation 1. Both sides agree that this document is authentic and accurate.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
All right, with that, it's entered. You may proceed.
Now, Officer Grant, in this message, Sawyer Scott informed you that she had information about a robbery case you'd worked on, correct?
Yes, that's correct, but she doesn't indicate which robbery case it was.
But she told you she saw what happened and it isn't what you think, correct?
Yes, she did say that, but I've been in several robbery cases and I wasn't sure which one this was directed towards.
But as you agreed earlier, it's important to collect all potential eyewitnesses in the account of a crime.
Yes,
correct?
that's correct, but I was confident I had enough information.
Officer Grant, Sawyer Scott's telling you that she has information on a case, and as you stated, it is important to collect all information on a case. So you agree that you should have followed up with Sawyer Scott, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered. We've already clarified enough for the jury that she was aware that there was another witness out there, and she has decided and clarified for the jury that it was enough to not look further into it and move on.
Your Honor, may I respond?
You may.
I'm asking if Officer Grant, I'm leading into the next question in which I asked Officer Grant if she should have called back Sawyer Scott.
I'm gonna overrule your objection now, counsel. I believe they're well within the right at this point. You have proceed defense.
Officer Grant, you should have contacted Sawyer Scott, correct?
I mean, I'll admit, I should have had someone call back Sawyer, but I was still confident I had enough information.
As you agree, you should have called her back, but Officer Grant, you never called her back, did you?
Yes, I never, and I must have just been overloaded, but I still felt confident with the evidence I had obtained.
So you came to court today without collecting all available eyewitness accounts, correct?
Yes, that's correct. But once again, Sawyer's voicemail doesn't indicate which robbery case it was for. And I still believe I had enough information.
Now, I'd like to talk to you about some of the evidence you collected as part of your investigation. Officer Grant, you found a bag of marijuana in Blake Hart's apartment, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And Hayden Russell claimed ownership of this marijuana, correct?
Yes, Hayden did.
So you decided to test the bag for fingerprints, right?
Yes, I did test the bag for fingerprints.
And you would agree with me that if the bag showed Russell's fingerprints, that would indicate that a robbery did not occur.
Yes, that's true, but there were no matches.
Now, you didn't find Blake Hart's fingerprints on that bag, correct?
That's correct. As I previously stated, there were no matches on the bag.
But the computer did give you a potential match for Hayden Russell, didn't it?
It did, but normally we have humans look at fingerprints again because you need a human to look at it a second time to be sure.
So you decided to make the determination that the fingerprint didn't match yourself?
I did. I had some prior knowledge with dealing with fingerprints, but I should have had another human look at it.
That's right. A detective not related to the case is supposed to make a final determination on the fingerprint, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
But you did not do that, did you?
I didn't, and I should have.
So to shore up your case against Blake Hart, you broke proper procedure, correct?
I mean, I did, but I also had prior experiences with fingerprints.
Now that we've discussed the evidence you collected, I'd like to talk to you about the evidence you didn't collect. You're aware that Blake Hart lives in an apartment complex, correct?
Yes, I am.
But you never checked if there was any security footage showing that where she went that day.
No, I didn't.
And you're aware marijuana comes in strains?
Yes, I am.
But you didn't check whether the strain found in Blake Hart's apartment was the same type that Miss Leone reported stolen, did you?
I did not.
And you were in court to hear Miss Leone testify today, correct?
Yes, I was there.
And you heard her say that numerous people had contacted her using the name Badger in the past, right?
Yes, but I had also heard her say that she only sold to Blake Hart.
But Officer Grant, you only ever considered one suspect in today's case, and that would be Blake Hart, correct?
Yes, that is correct. But with the evidence I collected, I do believe it was Blake Hart.
Now let's discuss your relationship with Blake Hart. You've arrested Blake Hart in the past, correct?
Yes, mainly for petty crimes, as I have previously stated.
But they've only received what you'd call a slap on the wrist. Isn't that right?
Yes, I do agree.
And despite never having been charged with anything above petty theft, you've always been certain that Blake Hart would turn to violence.
Well, he repeated crimes over and over again. And with that repeated, history, sometimes it leads to that, sadly.
But you've been certain that Blake Hart would turn to violence?
Yes, with the way he's gotten off with crimes but previously.
Now, Officer Grant, you were certain Blake Hart committed this crime before you obtained a warrant. Isn't that right?
Yes, I started believing Lyon's story because it was all matching up.
And you were certain that Blake Hart committed the crime before you searched for evidence, correct?
Yes, I was.
And in this case of a conviction, you would benefit personally, correct?
I mean, it would help me, but also like my previous cases I've dealt with play a really big part.
Officer Grant, you believe that a conviction would help secure a full-time position as a detective, wouldn't it?
I mean, I think it would help, but I don't want to underestimate all of my previous work with other cases.
But you believe a conviction in this case would help secure a full-time position, correct?
Yes, as I previously stated, but I don't think it would be the sole reason I become a detective.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
With that, we can go and stop screen sharing the exhibit then, and does the prosecution have any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, with that, I will ask Ms. Grant to step down. Would the parties like a recess before we move into defense side of the case? Or is the prosecution ready to rest their side of the case? I should ask first.
Yes, Your Honor. We rest our case and we would also like a break.
Okay, would you all prefer a 10 or 5-minute break? We'll probably take a 10-minute break now and a 5-minute break later, or 5-minute break now and a 10-minute break later. Whichever one you all prefer.
We can do a 5-minute break now.
Okay, with that, we'll be back at 3:11 EST. I'll see you all then. Are both parties back?
I'm back.
Oh, thank you. I believe our other scoring judge is still here as well. I'm just waiting on the prosecution and the defense.
I am back, yes.
Prosecution and defense, are you here?
Prosecution's back, Your Honor.
I believe
Alright.
that is all back, Your Honor.
All right, with that, we'll start the defense's case in chief. Defense, do you have your first witness to call?
Yes, Your Honor, I call Blake Hart to the stand.
All right, Ms. Hart, I just want to remind you that you've previously been sworn in. With that, you all may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Hello, my name is Blake Hart.
And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Ms. Hart?
Of course, I grew up in Scarborough, Kentucky. Yes, I know the accent. My parents are from London, so I just kind of picked it up along the way. But other than that, I'm not really too exciting. I like cats, that's something. My little lad Dilly might pop up here, back here sometime during this whole thing.
And do you live with anyone other than your cat, Dilly?
Oh, yes. I live with my step cousin Hayden Russell. We decided to move in together after I graduated high school, save some cash. The problem was I wasn't really saving cash for a while, so kind of got into a bad crowd in high school and started smoking marijuana.
And who did you buy marijuana from?
A while back, I used to buy marijuana from Kennedy Lyon.
And how did you get in contact with Miss Lyon?
Well, my friend Ronnie from high school actually recommended her to me. We used to do theater back in the day. We both starred in our school's production of the Titanic. I was the iceberg.
And how were you instructed to contact Miss Lyon?
It was a bit odd. I was told to only I was told to only talk to her using a private number and go by the name Badger. I mean, I hope she wasn't making fun of my teeth.
Why did you go by Badger?
Well, Kennedy has this whole animal name system. It was supposed to make sure that she knew who she was talking to without giving away any names in case of an arrest, but obviously the system isn't fantastic.
Why do you say that?
Well, Ronnie told me to contact Kennedy as Badger, which was Ronnie's name, not mine. But then Kennedy just let me keep the name, I guess. It's a bit confusing if you ask me.
So you went by Badger. Do you know if anyone else went by that name?
Well, I know Ronnie probably gave out the names of other people, but I couldn't tell you how many people he gave the name to.
Did you continue to buy from Miss Lyon?
I did until around February.
What changed in February?
Well, I decided to have a chat with Kennedy because I thought she was overcharging me for what I was getting.
And what happened at this chat?
Well, I asked her if she could stop overcharging me, and I warned her that if she didn't, bad things might end up happening. I'm an understanding person, but other people aren't. I was worried for her. I was really trying to look out for her.
And how did Miss Lyon respond?
Well, she just started screaming at me. She accused me of giving out the name Badger to other people, and at that point, I definitely hadn't. I don't know who was giving out the name, and at that point, I really decided that I was done dealing with her.
And what did you do after this?
Well, I decided to get back at Miss Lyon by giving out the Badger name to a crowd of people at some college party I went to. I made sure I told them to text her using a private number so that she would think it was me. It was my way of messing with her on my way out the door.
Have you had any contact with Kennedy Lyon since this confrontation?
No, I hoped I would never have to see her again. I decided to grow up and, start taking some responsibility for my life. I quit using marijuana and, tried to get a job, but with COVID and all, I just haven't had much luck thus far.
Now, I'd like to talk to you about March 14th. What were you doing that day?
Well, I was playing Super Smash Bros. With Hayden. I'll admit I'm not quite as talented on the X Station as I am on the Playbox, so I wasn't doing too well that day. At around 11:30, I decided to check my phone to see if I got any responses about my job applications, but I hadn't.
And what did you do after realizing you hadn't gotten any responses?
I was quite upset, honestly. It just felt like everything was going downhill, and it was starting to get to me. So I told Hayden I was going to go on a walk. She jokingly told me, "Don't be such a sore loser." And I know she was talking about the game, but in that moment, I really did feel like a loser.
And how long did it take you to walk around the apartment complex?
Well, I didn't check my watch, but not too long, 40 minutes maybe. I lost track of time taking pictures of those feral cats that hang around the apartments. I absolutely adore them, but unfortunately, I am allergic, so I can never really stay too long.
Did you do anything else on your walk?
Well, I tried to check my phone at one point, but decided to freeze up on me. It's one of those stupid Locust phones. They're appropriately named, I will say. You can only unfreeze them by resetting the entire phone, and it happens constantly. I've lost far too many cat photos from it all.
What did you do next?
Well, I finished my walk and went back to the apartment. I decided to get a glass of water, try to cool off a bit, but this faucet let out this ear-piercing creak and it just worsened my mood entirely. I changed into some lighter clothes and started playing with Hayden again.
Did anything else happen that day?
Yes. I was finally starting to get a good strategy going when we heard a knock on the door, and then a number of police officers came into our home, handcuffed us, and put us in separate rooms.
Did you recognize any officers?
Yes, I recognized Officer Grant.
And what did Officer Grant do next?
Well, after rummaging through our entire apartment, he came to speak to me, but I knew better than to speak to the police. So he went on to talk to Hayden.
Did you hear what Hayden said?
Well, I didn't get to hear much, but I did hear her shout something like, "It's my marijuana." I mean, I had no idea what she was talking about. I hadn't gotten marijuana in weeks, and I had no idea that Hayden was getting into pot.
And what happened next?
Officer Grant arrested Hayden for possession of marijuana and then proceeded to arrest me for robbery.
Now, Miss Hart, finally, did you rob Kennedy Lyon on March 14th?
Absolutely not. This whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. I swear I didn't rob Kennedy. I had no big problem with her until now. And as far as Officer Grant goes, it's not even my marijuana he found. It's absolutely Bullock's.
Thank you, Miss Hart. No further questions, Your Honor.
Prosecution counsel, do you have a cross-examination for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
On the day that Kennedy Lyon was robbed, you left your apartment at 11:30 a.m., correct?
Yes, around that time.
And this was shortly after you checked your cell phone for a few minutes.
Yes, I was really hoping to get some responses about those jobs, but I didn't.
So admittedly, you were on your phone in the minutes leading up to 11:30 a.m. on March 14th.
Yes.
And you claim to have just walked around the apartment complex.
Yes, I absolutely love those cats. They really do brighten up my mood.
And as far as you know, nobody saw you walking around the apartment.
No, I do like my solitude.
And you were probably gone for at least 40 minutes, correct?
Probably around that time.
Though it could have been longer.
I could have.
You own a Glock 19 handgun, correct?
Yes, unfortunately, Hayden's parents are really paranoid. They made us take it. We haven't really touched that thing at all. I don't think either of us really likes guns too much.
And this is easily accessible to you in your apartment.
I guess you could say so, but I have no reason to touch that thing.
But that's a yes, it is easily accessible to you.
Yes, but it's in a very squeaky drawer.
When you left the apartment, your roommate Hayden was in the bathroom, correct?
Yes.
You would agree with me that you also own a gray hoodie sweatshirt.
Yes, that thing is absolutely awful. I mean, that hole is just embarrassing. I mean, it's comfy. I wear it around the house, but I would never wear that thing out.
And it does have a hole in it, like you said?
Yes, it's made of some weird, cheap fabric.
You were also wearing a black coat when you left your apartment, correct?
Yes.
While you were on this long walk, you performed a factory reset on your phone.
Yes, unfortunately, like I said, it decided to freeze up, and the only way I could undo it is by factory resetting it.
And in doing this, you're aware that it would delete all your recent text history, correct?
Well, yes, and all of my cat photos that I had. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that they would make these things this way.
A simple yes or no will do, Miss Hart. But once again, just to clarify for the jury, you were aware that it would erase all of your text history.
Yes.
When the police searched your apartment, they found $500 wrapped in a rubber band within your nightstand, correct?
Yes,
You claim that this was your emergency fund money,
it was, and I worked to get that money.
but you didn't tell Hayden about this money?
No, honestly, I didn't want to worry her with it. I was going to use it if I really needed to pay the bills, but I wanted to keep something to myself.
Hayden is like a sibling to you, correct?
Yeah, at times.
And Hayden would do a lot for you, wouldn't they?
I guess sometimes she helps me with the dishes, but I mean, that's mostly my job.
You would agree that Hayden is now paying for your mistakes, correct?
I'm not sure what you mean, ma'am.
In the sense of being arrested for marijuana.
Ma'am, I mean, I didn't know about it at the time, but that was Hayden's marijuana, and I can't help her about that. I mean, she shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have done it, but she's going to face the consequences for what she did.
In February, 1 month before Kennedy was robbed, you bought some marijuana from Kennedy.
Yes, I did, and I wish I hadn't.
And this is when you started to suspect that Kennedy was shorting you on quantities.
Yes, and I politely asked her if she could stop doing that, and then she just avoided the question entirely.
In fact, you demanded that Kennedy explain why any trust was deserved when you were being ripped off.
Yes.
This caused you and Kennedy to yell at each other for a little while.
Yes, we did, but I was trying to warn her.
You then told Kennedy that bad things happen to shady dealers.
Yes, and it did happen. I mean, I was trying to tell her that, other people aren't as understanding when it comes to these kinds of things, and I didn't want her to get hurt. And I really hope that'd be the end of, our interaction entirely.
And you're not sorry that Kennedy got robbed, correct?
I mean, no. I mean, she says she's got robbed, but I don't really know if that happened. And we're not really the best of friends anymore.
But that's a yes, you're not sorry?
No, I don't even know if it's true.
In fact, you wholeheartedly believe that people like this deserve what's coming to them.
Ma'am, she was shortchanging me. I'm sure she was doing it to other people. Like I said, I tried to warn her, but she just wouldn't listen.
Miss Hart, that is a yes. You believe that people like this deserve what is coming to them.
Yes, I mean, other people aren't going to be understanding.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any redirect for this witness from the defense counsel?
No redirect necessary, Your Honor.
All right, with that, Ms. Blake Hart, you can step down. Does the defense have any other witnesses they'd like to call?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense now calls Hayden Russell to the stand.
Ms. Russell, I'd just like to remind you that you are have been sworn in previously. Do you need a second for a break to proceed into this? Or are you all good? I know you're doing back-to-back rolls.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
All right, no problem. You may proceed then.
Now, good evening. Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Hi, my name is Hayden Russell.
Now, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure thing. I was born and raised in Scarborough, Kentucky. I've worked as an auto mechanic at Lightning Lube in town for about 3 years now. You probably know our slogan from those stupid commercials they play all the time. Lightning lube, shockingly fast. I mean, it pays well enough that I'm able to split rent on a 2-bedroom apartment down on 7th Avenue. It's only about a quarter mile from Lightning Loop.
And who do you split your rent with?
I share an apartment with Blake Hart.
And what is your relationship with Blake Hart?
I'm not totally sure what to call it. I mean, our mothers are stepsisters, so we aren't really blood related, but I still try to look out for her. I mean, I wouldn't really call each other friends. I'm quite a bit older than Blake, but you know, we get along well enough. I'd like to think of myself as a bit of a parental figure, like an older sister or something.
And do you know why you're here today, Miss Russell?
Yeah. On March 14th, a police officer named Dakota Grant burst into Blake and I's apartment and handcuffed us. Officer Grant then charged Blake with armed robbery, which there was no way that she, even had a gun. I'm here to tell you that this is all really impossible.
All right. Now, first, I'd like to talk to you about Blake. Now, did Blake smoke marijuana?
She used to. In high school, Blake was a bit rebellious. I really can't blame her given her home life back then. From time to time, I guess she'd go to parties and smoke some weed.
Now, you said that Blake used to smoke marijuana. Why do you say that?
Well, in February, Blake informed me that, she was planning on turning her life around. She said she was going to stop buying marijuana from her dealer, Kennedy Leon, even if she thought it'd make Leon upset. Blake was going to stop spending money on weed and focus on paying her part of the rent instead.
And to your knowledge, did Blake stop spending her money on marijuana?
Yeah. I mean, I never saw Blake have or smoke any marijuana from that point on. She must have saved a good chunk of money from that too. By mid-March, she'd saved a good amount of money. I mean, I was proud of her. I mean, looking back, I probably should have done the same thing.
And why do you say that you should have done the same thing?
Well, right before Blake stopped smoking marijuana, I started. With COVID work and struggling to pay the bills and everything, I was having a rough time. I tried to stay away from drugs in the past, but to keep myself calm, I decided to try some marijuana.
And were you able to get any marijuana, Ms. Russell?
Yeah. My friend Grace told me there would be someone selling weed at a party she was going to, and I think early March. So I decided to go with her. I found this woman selling the weed, and I bought an ounce from her for a couple $100. I mean, looking back, I definitely got ripped off, but I had no idea what I was doing.
Now, Ms. Russell, this is quite important. What did you do with the marijuana after you had purchased it?
Well, I didn't smoke it. I don't know how to roll a blunt. No Snoop Dogg. I figured I'd cook it into some brownies or something when I had a bad day, so I decided to put it in our very top kitchen drawer. That way I'd know it was safe.
And why did you think the top kitchen drawer was a safe place to put the marijuana in?
It's the safest drawer in the house. It's probably the loudest, squeakiest drawer on the planet. I mean, if anyone tried to open that drawer while I was home, I'd know. I also figured, Blake wouldn't look in there. The only other thing we have in there is our gun.
And why do you keep a gun in the apartment, Ms. Russell?
My parents made me take it when I moved into the apartment. I don't think Blake and I have touched that thing since we moved in, though.
Now, I'd like to talk to you about March 14th. What were you doing that day?
Blake and I were just hanging out. We played Super Smash Bros, a video game that we play all the time. We're pretty serious about it. I beat Blake 3 times in a row, which, appeared to frustrate her a little bit.
And why do you say that Blake appeared frustrated?
Well, she pulled out her phone for a minute, but after that, she just kind of stormed out. I made some comment about her being a sore loser, because normally she is. But then she just told me that she was going to go on a walk.
Now, was this unusual for Blake at all?
Not at all. When Blake would get worked about things, she would usually go walk around the apartment, look at some cats or something. I mean, sometimes I'd go with her, but this time I figured I should let her be alone. I mean, I'd just beat her.
Now, did Blake do anything before going about her walk?
Yeah, she went to the bedroom to change while I was in the bathroom. Then she stormed out all by herself. I did feel bad. I don't really like seeing Blake upset.
Now, do you know if Blake had a gun on her when she left your apartment?
Heavens no. I mean, she'd have no reason to. Plus, I would have heard the drawer squeak if she tried to open it. There's just no way.
Now, did Blake return that day?
Yeah. Blake came back around, I'd say 12:30. She seemed to have settled down by then. She just grabbed a glass of water and sat back down to play more Super Smash Bros.
Now, Miss Russell, when Blake came back, did you see a gun?
No, I did not see a gun.
When Blake came back, did you see her carrying any marijuana?
No, I didn't see any marijuana.
Now, when Blake came back, did you see her open the kitchen drawer with the gun in it?
No, I didn't see her open the drawer, and I didn't hear the drawer squeak. And I definitely would have heard it if she'd tried to open it.
So when Blake came back, was she acting at all unusually?
No, I mean, everything seemed perfectly fine. She was a little bit upset, but she'd calmed down enough by that point where she could beat me in a smash a few times. I guess it was her lucky day.
Now, did anything else happen that day, Miss Russell?
Yes. A couple hours later, the police burst into our apartment. Blake and I were handcuffed and kept in separate rooms while an officer searched our apartment.
And do you know who that officer was?
Yes, Officer Dakota Grant.
And what did Officer Grant do?
He asked me about the marijuana he'd found in the squeaky kitchen drawer and about what Blake had been doing that day. I, of course, told him that the marijuana was mine, because it was, but he didn't seem to listen.
And why do you say that?
Well, Officer Grant arrested me for possession of marijuana, as he should have, but then he arrested Blake for armed robbery. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I told him that the marijuana was mine and that Blake didn't have a gun or a walk, but he didn't seem to care about any of that. He just took us both straight down to the station.
Now, have you had any other contact with law enforcement?
Yeah, I was approached by prosecutors and offered a plea deal. They told me that they could drop my marijuana possession charge if I agreed to testify against Blake. And, I told them off. I'm not going to lie for the police just to get out of 45 days of jail. I mean, Blake couldn't have robbed anyone that day, and I'm not going to lie to rob her of her freedom.
Thank you, Miss Russell. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Does the prosecution have any cross-examination for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
May I
Ms.
proceed whenever you're ready?
Russell. Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Russell, you knew that Ms. Hart used marijuana, correct?
Yeah, she's used marijuana since like high school.
And you're also aware that she bought exclusively from Miss Kennedy Lyon.
Yes.
And you're aware that prior to March of 2021 and February of 2021, Ms. Hart and Ms. Lyon had an altercation, correct?
Yeah, I think something about like shortchanging her, something like that.
So Ms. Lyon hadn't been giving all of the drug quantities as promised to Blake Hart.
No, I mean, Blake came back and told me about it. We both decided that it just wasn't a good idea to keep going on with her.
Ms. Russell, I'd now like to talk about the day of March 14th, 2021. You were playing X Station that morning, correct?
Yes, I was.
Around 11:30, Blake got out her phone.
Yeah,
And it looked like she might be texting.
I mean, she could be texting, she could do whatever she wants on her phone.
Right, and then around 11:30, just a few minutes after she was texting or had her phone out, she decided to go on a walk, correct?
Yeah, like I said, those cats kind of seem to brighten her mood just a little bit.
Your
Right,
Honor,
and
I would like to object. I believe that this cross, they are asking my witness in order to use a hypothesis in order to say if Blake Hart even was checking text messages on his phone.
So what are you objecting to, counsel?
I am saying that I think it will confuse the jury when this attorney is asking my witness if she even saw Blake Hart check these text messages. I believe it would fall under speculation.
Okay, so you're saying that the opposing counsel is asking the witness to speculate.
Yes.
Give a response to this, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. This is cross-examination. The witness can respond however they like. Ms. Hart clearly stated that Blake could have been texting or doing anything on her phone. I'm not asking her to speculate. I'm asking her what she thinks.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
I believe that the question that this person asked was, now Blake could have been texting. I believe that my witness did not say that Blake Hart was in fact texting. She was asked if she could have been. This definitely falls under speculation, considering that this attorney is asking my witness in order to use a hypothesis in order to pronounce her claim.
Prosecution, can you tell me exactly what your question was?
I'm not sure exactly what my phrasing was, but I think it was somewhere along the lines of she was texting, correct, or she could have been texting. In any case, I'm just asking her what she thought about these messages based on her reasonably based observations and perceptions.
Okay, I'm going to sustain it in part. Stick to what the witness does or does not know. It sounds like we don't know the exact phrasing of your question. Phrase it as what she knows, not what she could have known, and we'll proceed with that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Excuse me, Your Honor. May I move to strike?
Yes, all offending testimony will be stricken. Thank you.
So, Ms. Hart, after Blake decided to go on her walk, she went to her room to change, correct?
Yeah.
And at this point, you went to the restroom.
Yes.
And when you got out of the restroom, Blake Hart was already gone on her walk, correct?
Yes.
So you did not get a chance to see what she was wearing on this walk.
No, I didn't.
There is a gun in your house, correct?
Yes, like I said, my parents are pretty paranoid about things, so they made me bring it.
You keep it in the kitchen drawer, right?
Yeah.
Blake Hart has access to this gun at all times, correct?
I mean, it's really only as a precaution in case somebody like comes into our house, but we really had no reason to touch it.
But she always has access to it.
I guess technically she could go get it, but I would definitely hurt if she'd open that drawer. Like I said, it's obnoxiously squeaky.
Ms. Hart, yes or no, does Blake Hart have access to the gun at all times?
Like I said, she does, but I would have known.
And more specifically, she had access to it directly before she went on her walk on March 14th, 2021, correct?
Your Honor, objection to asked and answered. I believe my witness has made it very clear that Blake Hart could have had access to the gun.
Opposing counsel, any response?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm just clarifying for the members of the jury that Blake Hart had access to this gun on the day of the robbery to make a point.
I believe we've heard enough testimony about Blake Hart having access to the gun in today's case. Just move on with your next point, counsel. Sustain.
When Blake Hart got back, it was around 12:30, correct?
Yeah.
So Blake had been gone for an hour.
Something like that.
And when Blake got back, she immediately went to the kitchen.
Yeah, she was going to get a glass of water. She seemed a little heated.
And then you heard a squeak.
Yes, I mean, I think everything in this house squeaks pretty much. That faucet, it's absolutely ridiculous.
But Miss Russell, you would also agree with me that the drawer that the gun is kept in also has a very loud and distinctive squeak.
Yes, and like I said, it is distinct. I'm pretty sure it was the faucet that I heard.
But you never saw Blake with a glass of water, correct?
I mean, now she probably took a drink and then put it in the sink.
So you have no way of knowing for sure if this was the squeak of the faucet or the squeak of the gun drawer.
No, I can't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure she just got a glass of water.
But you can't say with 100% certainty.
Not 100% certainty.
You were surprised to learn that Blake had a stash of money in her nightstand, correct?
Yeah.
You were surprised because Blake had frequently expressed concerns about not being able to pay for her fair share of the rent.
Yeah, it's been that way in the past, but she's probably been saving up from not buying so much marijuana this month. So she was going to use it to pay for this month's rent.
So you were surprised that Blake was so concerned when she had $500 to pay for rent.
Well, things change month to month. She decided that she was going to stop buying marijuana, so she had some extra cash on her.
Yes, but it surprised you that she was so concerned about paying for rent.
Your Honor, objection again to speculation. I believe that if my witness claimed that she had been surprised, then this attorney could then use it in the cross-examination. But asking over and over if she was surprised when she hadn't initially claimed to have been surprised, I believe that this now falls under speculation.
Any response, counsel?
Yes, I've asked the witness whether or not if she was surprised that Blake was so concerned about paying for rent when she had money saved up, and the witness did not answer my question. So I'm asking it again to clarify, and this would not be speculation. I'm asking based on Ms. Russell's own personal thoughts and feelings. I'm not asking her to testify to another individual's mindset.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
You may.
I believe that this attorney didn't start initially with the question asking if she had been surprised. He had initially said, "You were surprised." This even falls under asked and answered, considering this question was repeated up to 4 times. So that is why I think it is speculation and could even go into asked and answered.
Okay, counsel, I'm going to overrule you on both. I believe the witness hasn't given a very clear answer yet, and I feel like it's not speculation at all. She can say yes or no. The attorney's allowed to assert something onto her that she's allowed to deny. You may proceed with your questioning, prosecution.
Yes.
So, Ms. Russell, you were surprised to learn that Blake had so much money saved up when she was so concerned about paying for rent.
I mean, I was pretty surprised. It was a good turnaround for her. I was happy for her.
But you were surprised that she had so much money.
Yes.
Yes or no?
It was a good turnaround.
Now, you've been helping out Blake all your life, correct?
Yeah, we grew up together.
So she's become something of a little sibling to you.
Yes, and she definitely acts like one.
And you would do anything to help her, correct?
I wouldn't say anything, but I know what happened in this case, and I'm gonna tell you about it.
But you would go to extensive lengths to help her, correct?
I mean, like I said, she might help me with dishes sometimes. I can help her out sometimes. I'm not gonna lie for her.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any redirect from the defense counsel?
No, Your Honor, no redirect necessary.
All right, with that, Ms. Russell, you're free to step down. We'll give it 10 to 20 seconds, let the scoring judges make sure they're caught up, and we will proceed with the defense as the next witness. All right, are both my scoring judges all good to go?
Yeah, I'm good.
Samantha, you're good as well?
Yep, sorry, I was muted when I answered.
It's no problem. With that, the defense, do you have any further witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Sawyer Scott to the stand.
All right. Ms. Scott, I'd just like to remind you that you have been sworn in previously, and you may proceed with your direct examination whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Hi, I'm Sawyer Scott.
And could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm the office manager at Allison and Kramer, a local law firm here in town, and I'm sure you're all familiar with them. Also, wait for this, I'm a huge UK fan. To give you a perspective, I've got the 2020 tournament championship trophy tattooed on my back. Cause come on, I was really confident that we'd win it that year, and only a global pandemic could stop quickly and Maxi. But yeah, that pretty much sums me up.
Do you know why you're here today, Miss Scott?
Yeah, on the afternoon of March 14th, I witnessed a drug deal between Kennedy Lyon and another person.
Now, I'd like to talk to you about March 14th. What were you doing that day?
Well, that was the day of the SEC championship game. My Kentucky Wildcats were going up against the Tennessee Volunteers. And I can proudly say that Tennessee volunteered for a good old-fashioned whooping that night. Yeah! But yeah, looking back on it, I could gloat for hours, but I spent most of the day sitting on my couch just watching pregame coverage nervously.
Now, did you ever leave your couch that day, Mrs. Scott?
Oh, yeah. I went to grab lunch around 11:30, and normally I would just order a pizza or something, but I recently found out that Papa John, the guy who owns Papa John's Pizza, is a Louisville fan
Objection.
and a
This is
racist.
irrelevant to today's case. Whether or not the Papa John's owner is a Louisville fan or a Kentucky fan has no truth of the matter in this case whatsoever.
Your Honor, may I respond?
First, let me make sure. Prosecution, you cut out a little bit at the beginning. Did you object to relevance?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, no problem. Defense, yeah. What's your response?
This is laying foundation for why Ms. Scott made a choice to go out and get food, which
your
is
response, Mason?
essential in today's case.
Bond.
Yes.
It has been established that she went out to get food, but it does not matter whether the Papa John's pizza man is a UK fan or a Louisville fan, and that didn't determine whether she went out to get food or not.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yeah, one last response.
This foundation is essential as it gives the reason for why she decided to go out and get food instead of ordering on Grubhub or driving to get food. As it's essential in the case as it shows the reason why she witnessed the event.
Prosecution, I'm going to overrule your objection for now. I don't think they've got too in the weeds for it to be objectionable at this point, but if they go further into it and they're still on an irrelevant tangent at some point, feel free to re-raise your objection. But with now, you can move on with your questioning defense.
Were you finished, Ms. Scott?
No.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, thank you, please.
Now, did you ever leave the couch that day?
Yes, of course. And I said I went to grab lunch around 11:30, and instead of paying $50 on Grubhub for an $8 cheeseburger, I decided to take a walk down to Buffalo Wild Wings.
And what happened on your walk?
Well, as I was heading out, I started to feel a little shaky because I'm a type 2 diabetic, so I figured it was an early symptom of hypoglycemia.
And what is hypoglycemia?
Well, as a diabetic, my body has issues using insulin to process sugars, so I have to be sure that my blood sugar doesn't get too high or too low. If it gets out of whack, I get a bit shaky and headachy, and it's my body's way of telling me that I need to eat something.
And did you do anything else to treat your hypoglycemia?
Yeah, I took 3 glucose tablets, which would give my blood sugar a kick.
And were you able to go on your walk after taking those glucose tablets?
Yeah, it was no big deal. I kept a tight eye on my blood sugar and I only had mild symptoms. So I decided to cut through Little Root Park, so it only takes me about 20 minutes or so to get there.
And what happened when you cut through Root Park?
Well, I was starting to feel better at that point. I was walking towards the park bathrooms when I saw 2 people skulking around.
And did you recognize those people?
Well, I recognized one of them as Kennedy Lyon, who I knew from high school, and I remember hearing that Lyon dealt drugs, so I decided to slow down and watch what was going on. I didn't know who the other person was.
Could you give us a description of the other person?
Sure. They were wearing a black coat and a cinched up hoodie, which made it impossible to see their face.
Now, I'd like to talk to you about that hoodie. Did you see if there was a hole in the hoodie?
I don't believe so, no.
Did you see if the hoodie had a zipper?
I don't remember it having one, no.
And did you see if the hoodie was gray?
Not that I recall, no.
Now, what were Kennedy Leon and the other person doing?
They stood all close to each other, and Lion pulled a bag out of her pocket. She handed it over to the person in the black coat, and that was that.
Now, I'm going to ask you a very important question. Was the person in the black coat holding a gun?
No, they had something in their hand, and it looked like a cell phone. Look, I grew up in a gun family, so I could tell you the difference between a Kimber 1911 and a Glock 21 from half a football field away, and there ain't no way that was a gun.
Now, did you call the police?
No, I figured it was none of my business since nobody looked like they were in any danger. So I just went on my merry way, and I got my salad and actually ran into my friends Jackson and Ryan at the grocery store, so I just hung out with them all day.
And did anyone ever contact you about what you saw on March 14th?
No, nobody contacted me for months.
And who contacted you?
Jamie McCreary. She's an investigator for the public defender's office, and she told me that she wanted to talk to me about an armed robbery I may have witnessed on March 14th.
And how did you respond?
I was confused. Once I confirmed that we were talking about the same thing, I told Ms. McCreary that what I saw definitely wasn't an armed robbery. Not once during the deal, Kennedy even looked surprised or scared. And on top of that, there wasn't even a gun.
Now, did the police ever contact you about what you saw on March 14th?
No. Apparently, the police charged someone with this robbery without ever bothering to ask me about it. It wasn't for a lack of trying either. I tried to let the police know what I saw, but they weren't having it.
What do you mean they weren't having it?
I mean, like, I tried to give the police a call to set the record straight. I didn't want an innocent person going to jail. We played phone tag for a bit, but then they just told me to leave a message for Officer Dakota Grant, the lead investigator for this case.
And did you leave a message?
Yeah, I did.
Would you recognize a transcript of the phone call you made to Officer Grant if I showed it to you today?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I'm showing what has already been entered into evidence as Exhibit 10. Now, what is this document?
Well, it's a document of my call with, well, my message for Officer Grant.
And what did you tell Officer Grant in this message?
Well, you can see here in the third and fourth sentences, I said, I need to talk to you about a robbery case you investigated several months back. I apparently saw what happened, and I can tell you it isn't what you think it is. And then I recited my name and phone number, asking them to contact me. And I thought he'd respond, especially because he ran the whole investigation.
Now, did Officer Grant ever respond to your message?
No, neither Officer Grant or any other police officer asked me a single question about what I saw. I had a clear view of what happened, and I can confidently tell you that there was no robbery that night, but the police never bothered to call me back and get that information.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, with that, if whoever is screen sharing would like to stop screen sharing, and does prosecution have a cross-examination at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed when you're ready.
You talked to the public defender attorney months after this incident, correct?
Well, yeah, because nobody was contacting me about it.
And you gave the affidavit for this case months after the incident.
Yeah, once again, because I could not, no one contacted me.
You would admit that your memory of events would be a lot fresher had you asked about the events closer to when you witnessed them.
Well, yeah, duh, but like they should have contacted me earlier for that, and they just decided to do it so late. I don't know why.
You suffer from type 2 diabetes, correct?
Yeah.
And sometimes this can cause you to go into diabetic hypoglycemia.
Yeah.
This is when the body doesn't have enough sugar in the bloodstream, correct?
That's correct.
And you felt yourself going into diabetic hypoglycemia on the morning of March 14th, 2021.
Yeah.
Common symptoms of hypoglycemia are shakiness,
Yep.
anxiety,
Yeah.
confusion,
Mhm.
blurred vision,
Yeah.
and slurred speech, correct?
Yeah, but not all of them are mine, you know. Not all of them are common symptoms of mine.
For you specifically, you became shaky, correct?
Yeah,
You were anxious,
of course, but I'm kind of anxious all the time, so
and you got a little headachy.
yeah.
And this headache causes problems with seeing long distances.
At some points, yeah.
You walked through LaRue Park after you started your hypoglycemic episode, correct?
Yeah.
And about noon, you saw someone standing next to the restrooms.
Yeah, but I didn't think of anything then. But since I saw Kennedy Lyon, who was a drug dealer in high school, I just stopped to watch for a bit.
But they stood about 50 feet away from you, correct?
Yep.
And you were still feeling the symptoms of hypoglycemia.
Yeah, but they had just faded a whole bunch, so it wasn't as bad as it would have been if I had seen it earlier. So
But you still had your headache, right?
yeah.
And you were still shaking?
Yeah, but like I said before, it had significantly decreased.
And your headaches, as you admitted earlier, affect your ability to see long distances.
Yeah, but like I said before, the symptoms had decreased significantly at this time.
But they were still around, correct?
Yeah.
You claim you never saw a gun.
No, and here's the thing, I can tell what a gun is from like half a football field away.
To be clear, from the angle you watched this exchange, you could see Kennedy Lyon's right side.
Yeah.
And you saw the other individual's left.
Yeah.
And this other individual was wearing a bulky black coat and a hoodie.
Yeah.
You agree it would have been hard for you to clearly see the right hand of the person in the bulky black coat and hoodie.
Yeah, but I still saw what I saw, you know?
But it would be hard for you to see the right hand, correct?
Yeah, but I still didn't see any gun, and that's for sure.
Between your blurred vision, shakiness, vantage point, and blocked view, it's possible you actually saw a gun and not a cell phone, correct?
Well, like I said before multiple times, my symptoms were significantly decreased at that time, so I'm very sure of what I saw that day.
But the possibility is still there, correct?
I guess.
In your own words, you can't be completely sure what it was, can you?
No, but I'm sure that it wasn't a gun, since I can tell what kind of gun a gun is from literally half a football field away.
But you cannot say this with 100% certainty.
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
Is there any redirect from defense counsel?
No redirect necessary, Your Honor.
All right, that's no problem with that. Ms. Scott, you're able to step down. Would both parties still like a 10-minute break? We want a 5-minute break. What does everyone one need or want?
Defense is good with a 5-minute break. If that works. Prosecution.
Prosecution is also good with a 5-minute break.
Sounds great. We will be back here at 4:05. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, are the parties here and ready to proceed with closing arguments?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense is ready to proceed.
Yes, Your Honor, the prosecution is ready to proceed.
All right, with that, the prosecution may begin their closing arguments whenever they're ready.
Desperate people do desperate things. You just learned about someone who is desperate. Desperate for a job, desperate for drugs, desperate for money. And out of that desperation, Blake Hart decided the best way to get out of their current situation was to rob Kennedy Lyon at gunpoint. A truly desperate act by a desperate individual. In today's case, we have the burden of proof. This means we must prove Blake Hart committed robbery in the first degree beyond a reasonable doubt. Members of the jury, the testimony and evidence you have seen today shows we have met that burden. At 11:30 a.m. on March 14, 2021, Blake Hart texted Kennedy Lyon in order to set up a drug deal at LaRue Park. Kennedy Lyon informed you Blake Hart's codename was Badger, and you have seen the text conversations between Kennedy Lyon and Blake Hart. Blake Hart admitted to being on their phone during the time frame the text messages were sent. And after setting up the meeting, you learned from the defense's witness, Hayden Russell, that Blake left the apartment for about an hour, which perfectly matches the time frame described in these messages. Hayden Russell is supposed to support Blake Hart's alibi, but actually doesn't give the whereabouts of Blake during the time of the robbery. In fact, nobody can confirm Blake's alleged alibi except Blake. Before Blake Hart left the apartment, she put on a bulky black coat and a hoodie with a hole in the abdomen. Once at the park, Blake Hart approached Kennedy Lyon. As Kennedy was pulling out the marijuana, Blake pulled out a gun and demanded the money and drugs Kennedy had. You learned that Kennedy heard the voice and was able to identify it as Blake Hart. Rory Butler witnessed the robbery from about 30 feet away and was able to tell you the robber was wearing a hoodie with a hole in the abdomen. Sawyer Scott is claiming they didn't see a gun, but you learned Sawyer was 50 feet away and was suffering from a diabetic episode, which impairs her vision. What they thought was a cell phone was actually a pistol. Officer Grant was called in to investigate the possible drug deal, but after talking with Kennedy, they began believing a robbery had occurred. The text messages setting up the robbery led them to obtain a warrant to search the home of Blake Hart, and what she found there was enough to prove Blake Hart committed the crime. In a drawer in the kitchen, there was located a Glock 19 handgun and a bag full of an ounce of marijuana, the exact same stolen from Kennedy Lyon. And the pistol matched the description given by Kennedy Lyon. Hayden Russell even informed you that upon Blake's return to the apartment, they went into the kitchen and heard what could have been the kitchen drawer open. It all matches. Officer Grant also found a bulky black coat that matched the description given by Kennedy and Rory. In the top of the laundry hamper inside Blake's room, there is a zip-up style hoodie with a hole in the abdomen, matching the description given by Rory Butler. Last but certainly not least, Officer Grant found in the defendant's nightstand $500 in assorted bills wrapped in a rubber band. You wouldn't know it, but Kennedy had exactly $500 in assorted bills wrapped in a rubber band taken from them. The evidence is too much to be a coincidence. We have proven Blake Hart robbed Kennedy Lyon. Blake Hart's alibi and testimony today was desperate. A desperate attempt to try and get out of the mess they have found themselves in. Nobody, not even their roommate and best friend, corroborates with their story. Hayden Russell tried to claim ownership of the marijuana, but you learned Hayden would do anything to help Blake. Blake claims the money was from saving up, but was afraid how she was going to pay her rent. Blake claims to have only been gone 30 minutes, but Hayden informed you it was up to an hour. Blake's story is inconsistent and desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. Blake Hart was desperate for a job, desperate for money, and desperate for drugs. Blake decided to target Kennedy Lyon. Members of the jury, the evidence proves beyond a reasonable doubt Blake Hart robbed Kennedy Lyon. Just ask Blake themselves. You heard Blake threaten Kennedy a month before the incident, saying bad things happen to shady dealers. And you heard no remorse from Kennedy Lyon on the stand today as she says, "I am not sorry it happened." Do not let Blake Hart's desperate act go unpunished, and find Blake Hart guilty of robbery in the first degree. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Does the defense have a closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. An accusation without a proper investigation. It's March 14th and Officer Dakota Grant gets a phone call. She's notified of a potential crime in LaRue Park and rushes to the scene. There she finds Rory Butler, an eyewitness to the crime, who informs her that she had just witnessed a drug deal and leads her right to the dealer, Kennedy Lyon. As was her duty, Officer Grant arrests Miss Lyon, placing her into the squad car. But running out of options, Kennedy Lyon comes up with a story. She claims she's just been robbed by a person named Blake Hart. The moment Officer Grant hears that name, something clicks. Miss Hart was the person that kept getting away from her with a slap on the wrist, no matter what she did. So before interviewing witnesses, before collecting evidence, before even obtaining a warrant, Officer Grant makes up her mind. Officer Grant decides that Blake Hart committed an armed robbery and makes an accusation without a proper investigation. And now, as the defense in today's case, we held no burden, but members of the jury, the prosecution did. They had to prove to you that Blake Hart committed armed robbery beyond a reasonable doubt, the highest burden in our legal system. And they failed to meet that burden today. They failed because they made an accusation without a proper investigation. Now, at the beginning of this trial, my co-counsel, Ms. Kylie Pirtle, came before you and asked you to keep two questions in mind today. First, could anyone other than Blake Hart have committed this robbery? The answer to this question is yes. Well, the prosecution have tried to convince you that only Miss Hart could have been Badger. Even Miss Lyon admits that isn't true. She told you on cross-examination that numerous people had contacted her using the name Badger that weren't Blake Hart. Miss Hart confirmed this, also telling you that she had given out the name to many people. But members of the jury, Officer Grant never investigated who those people were, and because Officer Grant never bothered to look into it, we're only left with doubt. You also heard there's a simple explanation for the physical evidence the prosecution bases their entire case on. Miss Hart explained to you that the money in her apartment came from pawning items. But members of the jury, Officer Grant never bothered to look into that at all. You also learned that the marijuana the prosecution claimed Miss Hart stole actually belonged to Hayden Russell, Blake Hart's roommate. But when she told this to Officer Grant, she didn't listen. Even when fingerprint evidence indicated that it was Hayden Russell's marijuana, Officer Grant ignored the facts. Since this didn't fit into Officer Grant's story, she dismissed the evidence, breaking procedure in the process. Officer Grant wasn't going to let a proper investigation get in the way of making her accusation against Blake Hart. That brings us to the second question. Did a robbery even happen that day? Both we and the prosecution called eyewitnesses to the stand today, and both Rory Butler and Sawyer Scott told you remarkably similar stories. Neither of them saw Miss Lyon threatened. Neither of them saw a gun. And members of the jury, neither of them saw a robbery. The only person who claims they saw a robbery occur that night is Miss Lyon herself, a drug dealer who secured a plea deal and a shortened sentence by coming to trial today. But Officer Grant heard the name Blake Hart and her mind was made up. So she made an accusation without a proper investigation. Members of the jury, don't let Officer Grant ignore the evidence to satisfy her personal grudge against Blake Hart. Don't let Officer Grant circumvent procedure on their way to a promotion. And don't let the prosecution's accusation without a proper investigation blind you from the truth. They failed to meet their burden today, and that is why we ask you to deliver the only verdict that the facts compel and justice demands. Find Blake Hart not guilty. Thank you.
All right, prosecution, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed whenever you're ready.
The opposing counsel claims that we made an accusation without a proper investigation. We have given Kennedy Lyons text messages, which places the exact time frame. We have given Rory Butler's witness, where he was standing 30 feet away and could tell you that the robber was wearing a hoodie with a hole in the abdomen. We have given Officer Grant's investigation that the text messages led her to obtain a warrant to search the home of Blake Hart, and what she found there was enough to prove that Blake Hart committed the crime. We have not made an investigation without a proper investigation. In fact, all the evidence leads to Blake Hart. And with that, we ask you to find Blake Hart guilty of robbery in the first degree. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. With that, I'd ask all the competitors to turn on their camera to help the scoring judges pick out their attorneys and finish up any scores they might have. Left to
Yeah,
fill
I'm
out.
gonna need a couple minutes.
You're good. Take your time.
Yeah, I will too.
All right, and if you two can just let me know when you get finished, because I can check and make sure they're done, and we can just go ahead straight into comments after that, and I'll just let Chris know. So
Will do.
sounds good.
Could everyone put their cameras on? I think we're missing a couple people, and we just want to make sure that if we wanted to rank you, we're able to.
Yep. Think Miss Kim, if you could turn your camera on, if you're able to. Great, thank you. I know it's weird that we're all just sitting here looking at you, so great job looking professional while we stare at you.
Hey, Molly, make sure you're writing the prosecution or defense out by people's names for top attorneys and top witnesses. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm done, Robbie.
I think I am as well.
All right, let me check them over real fast, and we can start giving comments.
Great.
All right, all the scores on. Molly's are good. And yep, we've got all the scores for everything. We should be good. Hey, Molly, would you mind messaging Chris and telling him we're done with ours and that I've checked them so I can give comments?
Yeah, do you want me to run to the main room or just text him?
Just text him. He's good. Okay. So I'll go ahead and give comments. I know I'm the presiding judge and usually I go last, but I also need to run tabs after this. So you all don't have to stay around till like 7 o'clock tonight to watch this. So I'll be bouncing pretty fast. But I just want to say, hey, I'm Robbie Webb. I competed with Montgomery County for 4 years in high school. And now I'm on the UK mock trial team. This is my second year here. I'm the tournament coordinator. I talked to some of you and your coaches about this tournament. Overall, I want to say really good job. I just had a few comments. I'm going to keep my comments pretty general. I'm going to let the scoring judges get into more specific stuff. The first thing I'd say is watch your intonation on full sentences. A lot of you had really good tone, but it varied in a sentence. So you'd start off the sentence very strong, get kind of weaker towards the middle, get stronger towards the end, or you do reverse, like you were really weak at the beginning, then was strong throughout the rest of it. By keeping it consistent, it makes sure, first of all, that I can hear it, and it also makes you sound more confident. And it's something I really struggled with whenever I was in mock trial, like whenever I first started learning it, and even now I still do it sometimes. It's not very fun to deal with, but it's something to keep in mind. The second thing I would say is on objections, make sure you're making it clear what you're objecting to. A lot of the objections today, they were very like, you knew you needed to make an objection, which is good. That's the first step. The next part is explaining why that's an objection. A lot of times you would say objection hearsay or objection speculation, and you would tell me what speculation is, but not tell me why this is speculation. Or you'd say objection hearsay and then just leave it there. Give the judge a little bit to work with. If you find the judge having to ask questions about something, that means that you haven't given the judge enough context. And keep in mind that we're usually scoring and writing comments at the same time. So sometimes we'll just not realize something. So giving the judge the most amount of context, being like, here's what is said, here's why it's speculation, or here's why it's hearsay, is really good. It makes our life a lot easier, and it makes you look better too. And on objections, make sure you're restating your question if the objection gets overruled. A few times I would overrule an objection and you would just move on with your questioning. It's happened to quite a few people. Make sure you re-ask that question. And if you're not clear, whether you can always ask the judge if you're allowed to, if you don't understand the ruling. But re-asking the question is vital, because there's no point in winning an objection battle if you're not going to reintroduce the content. In effect, you've lost the objection battle anyways, even if you argued it really well. And then for witnesses, I'm an attorney, so I won't have that much good witness advice. I'm very sorry. But the one thing I would say is sometimes you just got to answer yes or no. There were a few times where I felt like people were getting a little too fighty on stuff that really they didn't need to fight on. And it was kind of very obvious. Like sometimes your character is going to have bad facts. That's how mock trial is. That's how real life is. Just commit to it. Be like, yeah, it did surprise me that they had that much money or whatever. That did surprise me, whatever. And it'll make your witness sound more truthful, because at the end of the day, you're trying to portray a truthful witness. You can't help the fact that they have bad facts for your case. It has to be that way to make it a competition, or else it wouldn't be fun at all, and one side would always win. And you just gotta bite the bullet sometimes and be like, yeah, it does. And just, it's fine. You've got your attorney to back you up on redirect, and you're doing fine answering the questions. You fight it once or twice, and if they keep on pressing on it, just say yes and move on. With that, I think that's all my general comments. I have a lot more specific ones. I filled out the whole thing. Also, since I'm going to be on the team next year, I will drop you my email in the chat. If anybody here is going to UK next year or is going to the UK in the future, you can always email me. I'll know the people who are on the team, or I will be on the team. And please email me about it. I'm sure some of you are seniors, hopefully. And if you're thinking about coming to UK, please join mock trial. We'd love to have you. We usually do 2 to 3 teams. So you will definitely, we barely cut anyone because of how many teams we're able to field in college mock trial. So basically everyone's getting out of the team. It's a good learning process. It's fun to do. Looks good on applications. With that, I'm going to dip on out of here and I'll pass it over to Samantha and Molly. Thank you all for the great round.
Samantha, would you like to go first or would you like me to?
You can go first.
Okay, so Robbie pretty much covered all my general comments. Other than I think witnesses today had really good character. Like almost all of you had a very clear personality that shone through, which was very effective. So props to you on that. Attorneys on direct, some of your questions are a little overly formal and stilted. It's meant to kind of feel like a conversation between you and the witness. And I noted in the comments on my ballots, which you'll have access to, who that is. But that was quite a few of you. So work on sounding more conversational when you're talking to your witness, you know, nodding along with them, mirroring what they're saying, things like that. And then if anyone wants specific comments after Samantha goes, we can hang around and you all can ask me that. But for general comments, Robbie pretty much covered everything else.
Okay, hello. First of all, I think you all just did a really, really wonderful job. I don't look like it right now, but I am a licensed attorney in Kentucky. And I practice in family court. And so I get to do, I don't do criminal things, which is, you know, the exciting stuff, but I do get to see hearings like this. And I can tell you all that you all know your stuff more than some of the attorneys I go up against. First of all, general, really, really great job, just like Robbie and Molly both said. Before going into specifics, I want to say that the closing statements from both sides I thought were just truly phenomenal. I kept writing down good focus on this, good calling back to that. Oh, you said the desperate thing. Oh, you said the, what is it? The accusation thing. You mentioned the 2 questions. Both of you did something really excellent in closing. And I know that this is like a team effort. So both teams, which is that you focused on the thing that I think helped your case the most, and you stayed away from the thing that helped your case the least. So in the prosecution, I personally thought that the money wrapped in the rubber band with that specific amount, I thought that was one of the most helpful things for you all, because the defense make pretty good point that there's like a lot of coincidences. And so I thought that was really excellent to focus on, and you brought it up last. Recency effect. Prosecution, I had kind of, or wait, no, sorry, switch these. Yeah, prosecution, good job with the rubber band. Defense, I had kind of forgotten about the whole fingerprinting thing where the detective didn't follow the proper procedure for fingerprinting. And I think that's a really, really crucial thing to bring up, and you brought it back up in your closing. All the witnesses seemed like you were having fun with it, which I love. I never did mock trial, but I wish I had, because I could, well, I didn't do it in high school, but so I didn't get to have as much fun as you all were having. Introductions were really good. Parallelism was good. Okay, I also want to talk a little bit more about objections. First, I think it is the hardest part of being a trial attorney is recognizing when you need to object to something and then actually making that objection. I think it's really hard. I don't know if it's because we're taught not to interrupt people, but as an attorney, you have to. So I could tell that a lot of you picked up confidence as you went on with making those objections. But don't be afraid to get in there. You know, I saw a couple where there was one specifically where somebody said, Grace told me about this party that was happening and said, and I was like, oh, that's hearsay, right? That's like straight up hearsay. And here's a big one that I get caught up on. Even if you know, or you think, well, yeah, it's hearsay, but it might fall under this exception, I'm not sure. That's not your job. Your job is to make the objection. Don't do the other job side for them. You know, if they're going to say, oh, well, she was still excited when the police officer got there, so anything she says is an excited utterance, so I'm not even going to bother objecting. The judge doesn't have to give the judge doesn't have to give the other side's reasoning for them. It's the other side's job to do that. So don't do somebody else's job for them. You all did really great with signposting. Every single one of the attorneys did really great with signposting. And what that means is I'd like to talk about the day of March 14th. Next, I'd like to move on to this. I'd like to move on to this. Juries need to know what's going on. Juries need to know where their focus needs to be directed to, and signposting is one of the best ways to do that. Everybody who did cross-examination did a really great job of focusing on two of the biggest things that I think are important to do on cross-examination. One is establishing a lack of credibility, and the other is establishing bias. And I kept writing down like, oh, wow, you pointed out the hypoglycemia. You pointed out the wanting to be promoted to detective. You pointed out the I would do anything for my cousin. So good job on that. And then let's see. With evidence. So even though you all had the stipulation that the evidence was accurate beforehand, something that you want to make sure that you're not doing when introducing evidence is saying something like, now tell me what this picture of this house means, right? Because you as the attorney aren't the one who gets to identify the exhibit. The reason that we have witnesses identify the exhibits is so that they can authenticate them instead of just having an attorney tell them what to do. Again, I know it gets a little sticky with, first of all, this not being real. Second of all, you all having the stipulation beforehand, but you as the attorney, you don't get to identify what it is. You have the witness identify what it is. I loved your all's courtroom decorum. So a couple of you would say things like members of the jury and may it please the court. And I think there's a line, like Molly was saying, between being too formal and being too conversational. And I think the line you want to toe is being formal with the judge and conversational with your witness. So that's, again, a hard line to kind of walk on, but you all just did a really great job. Witnesses, are you allowed to have like your notes with you, or did you just have to remember everything? I don't know.
We're usually supposed to remember.
Oh, well, then you all did amazing. That's great, especially when you had to remember things like, I don't know, who in particular was it? Oh, I have to look at you all. Let's see. Who played the detective? Karen, yeah, you remembered all those, that fake education you had as a detective. I thought that was really impressive. So you all truly just did really wonderfully. And I also have a ton of specific comments that I'm happy to go over as well. Oh, and let's see. Katie, props to you on being two people that have similar stories and two people going back to back. That was incredible. I thought it was amazing.
Thank you.
And then last thing, and this is specific to the female members of the team. As attorneys, as female attorneys, it's hard because we don't want to, this isn't fair, but sometimes if we're assertive, we're seen as being bullying. But if we're not assertive, then we're seen as being just kind of pushovers. And I thought all of you did a really excellent job navigating that without seeming, it's not fair, but without seeming like you were bullies. And then, yeah, Ryan and Silas, I really appreciated that you stayed straight to the point, and I thought you both did a really good job of, when you were objected to, stating the reason. Like, I thought you both did a really good job responding to objections. And I don't know, everybody just did really great. I think this is a really cool program that you all get to do, and I hope you're all really proud of yourselves because it's really wonderful.
So I forgot to mention who I am. Hi, I'm Molly. I'm the vice president of UK's mock trial team, and I'm a senior. So I'm graduating. So if you end up joining the program, I won't ever see you, but it's still an amazing program, and it helps a lot if you're interested in going to law school, even if you're not. I'm going to law school next year, and this was like the top thing on my resume for all law schools. I know that seems like forever away for you all, but just thought I'd plug it a little bit there. And yeah,
I did moot court in law school, which there's mock trial and there's appellate, which I like more because I don't like juries. I like to just talk to judges. But my point in bringing that up was just that I went to law school. I graduated in 2020. If you have any questions about things that looked good on my resume to get me into law school, if you have any questions on if law school is right for you, what it's like being an attorney, I'm located in Louisville, but if you want to shadow me, I mean, I love things like this. I would absolutely be thrilled to have any of you, Molly, you included, come see what the day in the life of an attorney is like. You all are more prepared than most law students, truly. I mean it. I didn't know what evidence was when I went to law school. I was a social work major. You all are so good.
Thanks, Samantha, for that. So anyone have any questions? We're happy to answer.
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say, Sydney, I know we're like competing, but I have lots of respect for a good accent. So good job on that.
That just made my day. Thank you. You too.
Is that not your real accent, Sydney?
Oh no, I live in Kentucky, but I have no Kentucky accent.
See, I would never have guessed that wasn't your real accent.
Me either. You did a great job.
Yeah.
I love the muted excitement.
Any other questions? Otherwise, like y'all can go, and people that have questions can hang around. I think they don't know yet when the closing ceremonies or whatever will be, but I think Robbie said that he will message, coaches or whoever he's in contact with to let you know when to get back on. So.
Oh, Sawyer, not Sawyer, your name is Hannah. Speaking of accents and fun witnesses, I wrote in my comments, you are an absolute hoot. So just know that that's coming, because I thought you were a very, very, very good Sawyer Scott. I very much
so much
enjoyed hearing about your tattoo. So.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any questions, but thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Good job playing two witnesses.
Thank you.